Welcome to Talking Grit.
Welcome to Talking Grit. I am Jason Harwood. Over there is Jacob Litton doing something new today. And this week, we're going to start doing like a NFL pod. Still have a Lions tinge to it. I'm going to talk about the NFC North. Stuff that around the NFL that maybe isn't Lions like only topics we want to get to. We found that with our grit picks and stuff, we were maybe cutting into that episode a little too much because we're trying to keep that under an hour, just so everybody can listen to the whole thing. Don't want it to seem like a chore. So this is going to be about a 30-minute pod once a week, and we're open to suggestions. If you got anything, hit us up on Twitter. Like if something you want to add, something you like a lot, something that maybe doesn't jive with you, we're okay for suggestions. So we're just trying this out. So Jacob, why don't you hit up on the NFC North and like what's going on there, and hit up the highlights.
All right, I'll give you a quick rundown, and then we'll just talk about our thoughts. So number one right now in the NFC North, the Green Bay Packers. They are 5-1-1 right now. Of note, they are currently the 1 seed in the NFC, but they are the second worst. They have the second worst point differential among division leaders. They are not blowing teams out of the water and not, running away with it by any means. They beat the Steelers last week 35-25, and then this upcoming week, the Packers will play the Panthers. At number 2, we have us, the Detroit Lions. We're 5-2 right now. Obviously, coming off a bye week, we're going to be playing the Vikings next, NFC North matchup. Number 3, the Bears. They are 4-3 right now. They lost the Ravens 16-30 last week, and the Bears play the Cincinnati Bengals this week. Should be a win for them on paper, I think you would say, but I mean, we'll see. Not so sure. And then obviously coming in 4th, the Vikings are 3-4, who have the tall task of facing us next week.
Yep. Yeah, we'll be talking about them more in our preview podcast with Arif Hassan. So if you haven't checked that out already, I'd go ahead and check that out. Is there any surprises is this how you saw it shaking out? I mean, obviously we want to be Lions. We don't want them to be at the top, but is this kind of how you saw it happening, Jacob?
I mean, if you took away the records and just told me that these would be the standings at our bye week, I would think it was believable. I think I'd be mildly surprised that the Vikings were behind the Bears. But obviously it's just one game, and the circumstances around the Vikings of, the injuries and everything haven't really played their way. So I can't really say I'm surprised. Obviously, don't like seeing the Packers being above us and being the 1 seed, but they also kind of just have the benefit of having that tie versus having a second loss, and then they won the head-to-head matchup in week 1. So even more of a reason why we're circling that next matchup against the Packers. What about you, though? Was there any surprise or anything, I think it's about on par, right?
I think so. I mean, the Bears started out 4-2 last year and then collapsed. They started out 4-2 this year. I don't foresee them to collapse like they did last year. I hope Ben Johnson's a better game manager than Eberflus, because a lot of those games were lost at the end. But that remains to be seen. We'll figure that out. It really annoys me that the Packers have that tie. And I got to type out that, and every time I got to type this out for this, podcast, now I'm going to have to have a third column. That annoys me to no end. But that kind of goes with the Packers. So it is what it is. The Packers have not looked especially well. Just barely beating Arizona, losing to the Browns. And I don't know if you caught stuff on Twitter, but people are already making excuses. Like, this whole thing about Christian Watson missed a week 1 game, or we would have beat you guys worse. I don't know if you've seen this stuff on Twitter, but it's wild. Like, people are making excuses for a game they won, and they're acting like Christian Watson's some world beater. He's not.
I did not see that at all, actually. I know that they have a lot of faith in Christian Watson and, his abilities, but I mean, he didn't exactly, do anything noteworthy against Pittsburgh. He's only played 1 game, right?
No.
I mean, I don't,
Yes, that was the first game he was activated for. So, yeah, I don't know. And that game on Sunday, was Sunday night, was so annoying on so many levels. Like, it had every one of my pet peeves, balls being thrown up, getting flags because they were terrible throws and the receiver gets, jumbled up on. Uh, we're going to talk about the terrible offsides penalty. Having to kind of root for Aaron Rodgers really just irked me to no end. There was just so many things that happened in that game, and I felt like I was being forced to watch it. And then the Packers end up winning, which made it even worse.
Yeah, I think that may have been the first time in my life that me and Aaron Rodgers were both like, that's bull crap. That's ridiculous. What are you doing? Like, what kind of call was that? It didn't feel right.
No. Yeah, I don't like being on the same side as him
Right.
at all.
But he was right. He was right this time.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So I just saw the Twitter comments about, Aaron Rodgers, about time he could see the Green Bay Magic with the refs, working against him instead of for him. But yeah, it was, we'll get to that in a second here. Anything else in the NFC North? I mean, the Bears are playing all right, but did not surprise me that they lost to the Ravens this last week, and I would not be surprised if they lost to the Bengals this upcoming week. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, as I've said before, it just feels like any given Sunday. It doesn't feel like any team is completely unbeatable. I would definitely say us and Green Bay seem to have the inside track of making the playoffs, and I think the Bears and Vikings both, have a longer road for themselves, despite the fact they're only a game or two behind. And they still obviously control their own destiny. They can pull this around for sure, but as it stands right now, the way things are going, I don't have high hopes for either of them.
That's all right. I never have high hopes for them either way. So, anyways, the next topic we kind of want to tackle here is the just NFL referees. And I don't want it to, this is not a complaint session about Lions getting screwed on any calls or anything like that. It's actually dealing with most of the other teams. And I really view this as like just a perception problem. My first question for you, Jacob, is it really feels like more and more people believe that the NFL is rigged in some way. And now that there's online gambling, that's just so easy in most of these states. Do you buy into any of that? That there's any any part of the game is rigged at all?
I don't want to, and I don't think that it's rigged in the sense, like in the NBA world right now, what's going on with some of the players and coaches. I don't think it's to that level, but I mean, without a doubt, there are teams that get more flags than others. And that's just the case. That's the case it's always been. And then as, there's more cameras, everything's more prevalent, everything's in slow motion. Now you can dissect everything. And it's become more obvious that just certain teams are getting certain calls and certain plays are called certain ways. And, I keep saying over and over again about offensive pass interference, but we saw it again, in the Green Bay game. The ball gets thrown up. I mean, Jordan Love's under pressure. He just chucks it up in the air. The defensive back can't turn his head around. Well, Tucker Kraft has to go back to it. It's a two-hand extended shove to create some space between him and the defensive back. And there's no flags anywhere. And it just seems to happen time and time again. But, I know you don't really listen to 97.1 anymore either. But I did see something where they, talked to, it's TJ Lang that's on there, right?
He joins sometimes.
Yeah. So he was on there talking, and they, asked him about that, and he said, when he played for the Lions, he started getting a lot more like holding calls, a lot more penalties and everything. And people asked him, what are you doing different? What's going on here? And he says, look, I'm doing the same thing that I've done every single, snap of my career. He said that just, when he was on Green Bay, it just felt like they were able to get away with a lot more.
Yeah, I think that there is some bias involved, and it may not even be like aware bias, because like in the NBA, you talked about that. There's definitely bias between superstar players get calls that, non-superstar players get. And I certainly feel that way with like Mahomes. He'll get penalties. Aaron Rodgers back in the day used to just chuck the ball up and get that pass interference. Him not getting the offsides call on Sunday was wild, because that's something that he's certainly known for, especially in his Green Bay time, for just getting people to be drawn off sides. And then for him to not get that call, that was insane for me. There were 3 plays that I saw on Sunday, and I know there's probably more than this, but the 3 plays that I saw that really just made me just really, really angry because they really, I don't know if they affected the outcome of the game, but they certainly could have affected the outcome of the game. First one was Tampa Bay, New Orleans. I don't know if you saw this play or not, Jacob.
Yep.
There was a fumble, obvious fumble, picked up. Tampa Bay runs it for a touchdown. They, go through and review this, said that there was a whistle. And so Tampa Bay ends up getting the ball, but like around the 50 or 45, 50, midfield should have been a touchdown. They showed the replay. No one could hear a whistle. No player stopped. Even the announcers announced, we don't hear a whistle. No one hears a whistle. It was just blew my mind that they, the referee at the end said he blew the whistle because he thought the play was dead. But I mean, that could be a simple mistake by, they trying to protect their players. But how many times did they hold the whistle, to let these plays play out? And then it just seems like they blew way too early, screwed the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over in that game. And whoever had them on fantasy was probably pissed too, because that would have been another defensive touchdown. They already had one earlier. That would have been two.
Right. I don't understand at what point the whistle was supposed to have even been blown. And you're right. Like it seems like as of late, they let those plays go, even if they think they're down, just because you don't want that situation to happen, right? You don't want the touchdown to be taken off the board because of an early whistle. You'd rather let it play, and then if he was down, we'll look at it and replay, and we'll correct it then. So for them to blow the whistle here, and it wasn't particularly close. I mean, right when they recovered the fumble, he wasn't even on the ground. So I don't understand at what point this whistle supposedly blew. I've seen all the angles and everything. I mean, I haven't dissected it close, but I can't hear a whistle in any of them. So I don't understand at what point they even blew it. And, the referee's running up the sidelines following the play.
I think it's when they thought the guy, the fumble happened and the player was kind of like parallel to the ground. Mm-hmm. So maybe he, the referee was shielded and didn't see the ball hit the ground. But why are you whistling the play dead if you can't see the ball, in the player's hands? It wouldn't be your call. So I don't understand that. So that made me upset. The next one is the tush push. And this one I was fuming at because first of all, yes, exactly. They cannot officiate this play. Either there's a false start, or they line up incorrectly. I mean, it's terrible. But in this case, Jalen Hurts, pushes himself forward. While he's pushing himself forward, he reaches the ball out like he's reaching out for a goal line to get it past the first down, but it wasn't a goal line. Kayvon Thibodeau comes in and just basically steals the ball away. Jalen, no part other than his feet are hitting the ground. There's no other body part, so the play is still live. They whistled the play dead. It was like almost as soon as Hurts got the first down, they said, "Oh, the play's over. We're going to give him the first down." But Hurts doesn't know he has the first down, and he's reaching the ball out, making a stupid play, reaching it out. On the goal line, it's okay because as soon as you pass the goal line, you don't have to worry about another player stripping you. But in this situation, Kayvon Thibodeau just comes and rips it right out of his hands, but they whistle it dead. And the Eagles get another call. Really made me upset.
Yeah, I mean, because it was blatantly wrong, And in this one, you can hear clearly when the whistle happens. And the whistle happens after the fumble. The ball's on the ground. The Giants pick it up, and then the whistle's blown. And then they get together like, well, we ruled forward progress. No, you didn't. That's not when the whistle happened. That's not what you ruled. You can't go back and change it now. And because they did change it like that, now forward progress is not reviewable. So now you just basically said, hey, guess what? It's their ball. There's nothing you can do about it. So you're right. This is just another way that this play is kind of screwed up what's going on. You can't give them. So like in this instance, when they are not at the goal line, but they're a yard or two away, the referees give them 3 to 5 seconds of pushing to try to get to that line before they blow it dead. Yeah. They let them push and push and push until they get there, and then they'll blow it dead. But then you got this situation where they get halted, they get the ball stripped, and then you blow it dead and give it to them anyway. I mean, I don't understand. I really thought that because of the pushback and the people that wanted it banned, I thought the NFL was going to be officiating this tougher and calling the false starts, maybe questionable false starts, or just calling it under a microscope. And instead, it's kind of been the other way where they're just really letting them do whatever.
But if you watch a lot of games like we do, it's like the Eagles get away. I'm a Lions fan, right? So like I don't it's not like I'm, in this division that, and I just see like I'm just calling, I'm anti-Eagles or whatever. But every time I see this, the Eagles get away with false starts and all that, but the other teams they do blow it close. And it just seems like we're so biased that the Eagles are so good at this play that they couldn't possibly make a mistake. No. And I'm with you. Like call it correctly and this play will go away because they won't be nearly as effective with it, and I just don't get it. I don't understand it. And if they can't officiate it correctly, they need to get rid of it. And that's the bottom line to it. If they can't officiate it correctly, if it's too hard to call, like all the announcers seem to say every time, this is so hard to call, whatever, then they just need to get rid of it on that basis alone. That we cannot call this play fairly, so therefore the play is unfair.
We talked about this before,
So
like, if we would want to ban it or not. And, I think we both kind of
yeah,
said, like, it just feels illegal. Something about it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like football. It's taking away from the game. And then as this season's going on, it's not even halfway through, and it's become 100% apparent that it is taking away from the game. And them running this play
yeah,
over and over again. And now that we, under a microscope, you're slowing things down, and then you see, okay, yeah, you know what? One of these guards is jumping early every single time. They're initiating contact before the defense can move. You're just at an extreme disadvantage. And if you're not going to call it fairly, then of course they're going to get that play 90% of the time.
yep. Exactly. So that play and then the offsides penalty. Everyone saw that on Sunday Night Football. Clearly offsides. Like it's not even a question. It's not like the Michigan State game where that was like really close offsides. This was clearly it was almost to the point that they should have whistled the play dead because he was going to be unabated to the quarterback because he was able to split between the center and the guard so much that he was going to give, an unfair release. But I don't understand. And what really made me upset is that then they huddle afterwards, right? And we've seen this as Lions fans, right? They can't possibly change a call 72 seconds after they call it, right? And then they obviously don't throw, but 2 weeks prior they did that to the Lions 72 seconds after they call an illegal motion penalty. You know,
Well, that was New York,
Dan
right?
Campbell, Jared Goff say that the New York got involved. I believe them because why would they lie about that? They have no reason to lie about that. And I really think they could have thrown a flag, but I think that they knew there was pressure on them, and then the calls about New York would have been in there, and so that's why they just didn't throw. Didn't review and throw the flag, but that like someone should be like a ref should be fined for that penalty. I mean that is so blatantly obvious. And if we have a review, right? We can't review these penalties, but review is supposed to get them right. And why they can't review like a call like that, I don't understand.
I mean,
If they
but
can't do an expedited review on that, then they need to do that.
it should be able to happen. But I mean, that's why, like, do we need to add an extra official on the field? Like, what? There is one guy whose job it is to look at that line. You make
I
sure
know.
the formation is good. You make sure the line is good. If anybody's
Yeah.
lined up, over in the neutral zone, it's a penalty. That's what you're looking for. So when it's so obvious, like you said, they could have called unabated quarterback. The only reason it wasn't is because the defensive tackle knew what he did. Like he slowed up and kind of gave one of those like, oh man, like, they got me. He slowed down because he was past the
Yeah.
center when they snapped the ball. And then he kind of had
Yes.
to like, okay, yeah, I got to go with the play. Everybody on the field thought that was going to be a flag.
Yeah. I was watching it live and like, they usually have the flag logo at the bottom of the screen and it never showed it. And then I never saw it thrown and I was like, there's got to be a flag. And I think Tirico even said at some point there's still no flag on the play. Unbelievable. They need to, I don't want to slow this game down or make every play, like every play needs to be reviewed because that would take forever. But something blatantly obvious like that, and you think about the pass interference in New Orleans in 2018, I think it was 2018. Like we have replay to get rid of these obvious errors that someone's making. And I don't know, like it's so apparent now. It just seems like the refereeing's got worse this year. I don't know if you feel like that, but it just feels like everything that they're calling is just like the wrong way. I don't get it.
Right. 100%. I almost wish that it was kind of like how, baseball, they grade the umpires and like those are public, like the percentage
Oh,
of
I know.
calls that they had right versus wrong and the different grades. Like, do that
Yeah.
for the NFL. Put them on blast. Let them. I know they, obviously behind closed doors, they say that these officials get graded each time and that, if they're not performing well, that they're not going to do anymore. You see the same refs in here for 18 years or whatever, and the same people, you pinpoint these things like, hey, when Mahomes has this crew, he's undefeated, or, they get all these calls with the same crew. Maybe don't
Yep.
have that crew work Chiefs games anymore then. Like, just avoid the conversation, avoid that possibility from happening.
So you don't see Brett Allen doing any Lions games. I could tell you that. That has not happened
Yeah.
since Dallas, and I don't foresee that happening.
Well, if and when it does, that'll be what we're reminded of.
Heck yeah. Brad Allen's probably scared of Dan Campbell and Dan Skipper too. The Dans, they're
Yeah,
both
right.
huge guys. I wouldn't want to be against them.
But you know what? Even in that case, or, in this case with the offsides thing, if you made a mistake, you made a mistake. It would almost be more beneficial for them to have to, like, interview, like the players, have them talk to the media and have them say, hey, what did you see on that play? What was the huddle about? Make them available right after the game so that you're getting them fresh and what's on their mind. Don't protect them and put them behind closed doors and have this kind of like questionable, like, what are they doing here? Because then that would have been an opportunity to be like, hey, I was checking the formation. I didn't know if the tight end was on the line or off the line when the ball was snapped. I didn't see if he was offsides. Then everybody in America could kind of be like, well, that's kind of hard, but I guess I could see why that would happen. But instead, we're kind of left with, this blatantly obvious and then the weird huddle afterward, just rubs everybody the wrong way.
I know. I want to hear what they're saying in those huddles. I know that's not going to happen, but I really want to hear it. All right, let's move on to grit picks. We got to go over 2 weeks because of the bye week last week of the Lions. We really didn't go over our week 7 picks. So, really quickly here, Jacob and I have both picked the Steelers. Bengals surprised the Steelers on that Thursday night football. Joe Flacco, remember that Jamar Chase is on the team, and it came right through. My Falcons affinity for picking Falcons backfired on me here. San Francisco beat them on that Sunday night football game. Way back when, Lions and Bucks, we did the over-under because we don't pick the outcomes of those games. I went under, and Lions defense showed out and kept that at an under, and our offense, so only scored 24 in that game, whereas Jacob did the over. And then the Texans, who looked terrible that night, and the Seahawks beat them. So that's where we were at for week 7. Week 8, we just got to quit picking the Steelers, man. All right, so Chargers, both picked them. They kind of took it to the Vikings on Thursday night football. And Steelers, Green Bay, again, the most annoying game in America. Steelers end up losing on that one. And then we were forced to watch the Chiefs again and prime time on Monday Night Football. 7-7 at halftime, but then the Chiefs, just took over in the second half. Marcus Mariota came back down to earth, and that's how that ended there. All right, Jacob.
Did you see? I don't know if you watched the whole game, but did you see the interception where like Debo, like it bounced off his hands?
Oh, yes.
So bad.
Oh, yes. It was so funny because right before that, I was telling my boys how many drop passes Debo had this year. I think it was 5 before that, and Preston didn't believe me, so he had to Google it. He was basically you. He turned into you for a second. You got to instantly Google something to prove me wrong, and he looked it up, and then it was right after that he goes, "Oh, there's another drop pass."
Yeah, right.
It was, Debo was trying to run before he had the ball.
And popped up directly in the defensive end, like just
I know.
Such an easy pick.
Stupid Chiefs bounce. All right. As of right now, we are 1 game apart. I am 14-15. Jacob is 15-14. So many upsets this year. We are, and we're not picking those. So, we'll see how it goes. All right. We'll see if I can even it up. We have week 9, Thursday night football. You have the Baltimore Ravens, who are favored at 7.5 over the Miami Dolphins. Jacob, I'm going to let you pick first. Who are you going with in this one?
All right. Ravens at Dolphins. This was probably a very exciting matchup on paper before this season started. Both of these teams losing records. Lamar has been out. The Ravens cannot stop anybody. The defense is bottom 3 right now, but, they got to play the Bears last week. The Ravens won convincingly. The Dolphins also came off a very convincing win against the Falcons, but the Dolphins played the Falcons without Michael Penix or Drake London. They held Bijan at 25 rushing yards, which is a big reason why they won. But, with Lamar coming back, I really don't see a way that the Ravens lose this game. So I'm definitely going with Baltimore.
Oh, we're going Baltimore. I actually am going Miami in this one. The fire John Harbaugh chants in Baltimore are going to get louder after this week because Miami Ravens can't stop them, and I think that they're gonna outscore them in this game. We'll see how it goes. I know Lamar's coming back; it might be the difference maker here, but I'm going with Miami Dolphins. Thursday Night Football is like the opposite of whatever I feel like. So you think Baltimore should win this game, right? Well, nope. It's Thursday Night Football's opposite. I'm going Miami. Seattle favored 3.5 at the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels is coming back in this game. I imagine that's going to play a big factor in this game. However, I am just super impressed with how Seattle's playing this year. Sam Darnold is doing things that, frankly, I thought he was broken after the last 2 games of last season, but he has definitely proved me wrong. And, the Jets looking at a top 5 quarterback across the country that they had on their team at one point that they drafted that, is excelling at in another market. So I'm going with Seattle on this one. How about you?
Yeah, Seattle's 5-2. They're coming off a bye week. The offense is rolling right now. They are one of 7 teams to be ranked top 10, both offense and defense. The Commanders have have had a really disappointing season so far. They've lost 3 in a row. Jaden Daniels was out last week, but even the games that he's played in, they're 2-3. And I don't know if they've said for sure whether he's playing this week or not. I know they're trying for him to be. I don't know if they've announced
He
that
had a
yet
full
or not.
practice today, so
Yeah,
I
that's
think
good.
he's going to play.
That's good, but I still think Seattle's going to take it to him.
Yep. All right. Arizona Cardinals at Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are favored at 2.5. Jacob, I'm going to let you pick first on this one.
Yeah, so the Cowboys are one of the interesting teams in the league because they rank second. They're number 2 in offense, but they're second to last in defense. So they're scoring a lot of points. They're giving up a lot of points. They've showed some fire against some of the, teams that you would expect, the better teams, the Eagles, the Packers, but, they came out flat against the Broncos. They have to outscore teams to win games. Lucky for them, the Cardinals have lost 5 in a row. I mean, the Cardinals are coming off a bye week, so you'd think they'd be prepared. Like for some reason, the Cardinals are the Cowboys' kryptonite. So the Cardinals have beat them it's been almost 10 years since the Cowboys have beat the Cardinals. The Cardinals even beat them with Josh Dobbs at quarterback. So for some reason, the Cardinals always seem to do well against the Cowboys, but I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think the Cowboys will outscore them and finally break that curse this time. So I'm going to go Dallas in this one. What do you got?
Yeah, that's who I got too. I think they're just going to outscore them. Just if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, if you had Micah Parsons on that defense, you probably you would have a shot at winning your division this year. The Eagles are kind of down. I mean, I know they're winning, but I don't think they're not lights out. Barkley's having, a rougher season. He's not producing. Obviously, the Giants are the Giants. And Washington, like we just mentioned, having more of a down year than most people expected. You'd have a chance at winning this division had they had Micah Parsons on this team. The defense wouldn't be, rated. They may not be rated, in the top 10, but they certainly wouldn't be second to last with Micah Parsons providing that pressure. So that, trade is looking terrible thus far in this season. I know they got the draft picks, but those aren't going to come for a while. But I'm going with Dallas. I think they're going to outscore, but it is, yeah. I'm just so glad I'm not a Dallas fan. They would just drive me nuts.
Yeah, I think it's a toss-up. And everybody that they thought they were going to count on, with Micah being gone, is hurt. They've got so many injuries on the defense, so, I think they're giving up. They are giving up 31 points a game, and they're scoring 30 points a game. So,
yeah, we get to face that defense later on this year on a Thursday night.
Swiss cheese.
So we'll see. Yeah, it's gonna be at Ford Field. Gonna be a track meet in there. Should be fun. All right, one last section before we head out of here. Upset of the week. I already said mine. Mine's Miami. So I already did that. That's on. So I'm gonna give you that. I've already given my reasons. Jacob, who do you have for upset of the week?
Yeah, we talked just a little bit, before we went on, because I was looking at the matchups, and there's only just a handful of teams that are significantly favored. Most of the spreads are between 2.5 and 5.5. So, as much as I would like to say that the Panthers go into Lambeau and cover the spread, which is at 13.5, I'm not going to go with that for my upset of the week. So, my upset of the week is just going to be a technical upset, and that's going to be the Bills over the Chiefs. The game is in Buffalo, but the Chiefs are favored by 2.5 points. So maybe the Bills are not as good as they've looked before, but I also don't think the Chiefs look, as good as they have before. They're not unbeatable. I think it's going to be another classic matchup between them. But for whatever reason, it seems like people are already starting to engrave the Lombardi Trophy with the Chiefs' name on it, and I'm just not sold on any of that yet.
Long season, and yep. No, I'm not sold on the Chiefs either, and I do think the Bills are take this game. I agree with you on this one. Being in Buffalo, they're going to be hyped for this game. They want to put down the Chiefs, and frankly, I'm rooting for them hard to do that too. Not a huge Buffalo fan, but I like them way better than the Chiefs. So,
were you interested by that line though? You think at home they usually get a little bit. So for the Chiefs to still be 2.5 on the road against Buffalo just seems weird to me.
Well, I'm thinking it's got to be the betting public. Like people are out there,
right.
Chiefs beat the Lions on, Sunday Night Football. They win last week on Monday Night Football. People have forgotten about the Jaguars loss. The Chiefs are back. Mahomes back.
Yeah, right.
That's a betting line is what that is. So, all right, Jacob, we did our first NFL pod. I think it went pretty well. If you guys want to check us out, we'll have our preview pod. We're doing a sign, so that's going to be uploaded probably before this episode. So if you haven't checked that out, check that out. That'll get ready for, big NFC North matchup this weekend. Anything else, Jacob, before we take off?
No, man, I'm ready.
All right, man. I know it's the NFL pod, but we're still Lions fans, so go Lions.